President Trump interrupted the NATO summit and approved a massive strike in Iran. Iran is warning of harsh revenge against the United States military after suffering American airstrikes on more than 80 targets. Tehran is warning that it will act with a crushing response that will crush the American military. Is the Middle East once again on the brink of explosion and a return to full war? And why did the Revolutionary Guards in Iran decide to go to war once more? Following an Iranian attack, a Qatari gas tanker is going up in flames and could explode at any moment in the Strait of Hormuz. And the United States is closing the trap and the tap on Iran. Multi-front escalation and drama in the Persian Gulf. The United States launched a particularly powerful sequence of strikes against targets in Iran in response to the hit on ships in Hormuz. And Washington delivered another severe blow to Iran following the Iranian escalation in the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran is returning fire. Alarms in Bahrain and Kuwait following Iranian missile attacks. It all began after Iran attacked Saudi and Qatari oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. The United States is canceling the license for the export and sale of Iranian oil, and Iran is immediately demanding that Washington cancel its opposition to transit fees in the Strait of Hormuz. And meanwhile, after the renewal of sanctions on Iran, oil prices are spiking. At the very same time as the American attack in Iran, the IDF is attacking southern Lebanon. And at the NATO summit, the President of the United States committed to removing the sanctions imposed on Turkey. The race between Israel and Syria has begun. In Jerusalem, they're looking for a new alliance in the Middle East. So what are the chances that the war will resume? Let's put things in order. I'm Mati Shoshani. Tonight, Yair Pinto is on vacation, and I'm replacing him because he too deserves rest. And we are boots on the ground, bringing you all the truth about what is happening in Israel, and also all the truth about what's happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. Today is July the 8th. Let's get into it. This all began, all of it, when the Revolutionary Guards decided to stretch the line with the United States to the limit. A gas tanker that the Iranians attacked with a missile in the Strait of Hormuz the day before yesterday could explode at any moment, following a fire that broke out in its engine room. And last night, a Saudi tanker and a Qatari tanker were also attacked with missiles by Iran. In the afternoon, at least one additional incident was reported in Hormuz, when the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Agency, with the lovely acronym of UKMTO, announced that a tanker was hit by a drone launched by the Iranians. Now look, the Qatari gas tanker that was hit last night was carrying liquefied natural gas. And after it was hit on its left side, it transmitted distress signals and requested assistance. A short time later, a fire broke out on it, and right now it could explode at any minute. Washington rightly blames Tehran for these attacks and announced that this is a violation of the ceasefire agreement. And Iran, on the other hand, rejects the accusations and claims that the United States is the one escalating the tensions. And since the United States and Iran agreed on the Memorandum of Understanding, which was meant to once again allow safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, at least 4 commercial ships have been attacked or damaged, including the 3 ships that were attacked last night. The shooting last night took place after the talks between the sides in Qatar last week, which, as far as I know, did not lead to significant progress in the context to achieve a final and permanent agreement. I'm just saying, while the United States was celebrating its 250th birthday, the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, well, they attacked at least 4 different tankers. One of them was hit so badly that it could explode. Now, the Iranian move required a military response. And last night, an American official said that the United States had decided to cancel the licensing that allowed the sale of Iranian oil after at least 3 tankers were attacked, as stated by Iran. At the same time as the renewal of sanctions, the same official warned that Iran's actions in Hormuz are completely unacceptable and said that they would have consequences. And the consequences did indeed arrive at full force. Following the attacks on commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, the United States announced the opening of a new air campaign against Iran. Iranian media reports that several explosions occurred in the early morning hours of July the 8th in Hormuzgan province in southern Iran. These reports include the port areas of Bandar Abbas, Sirik, and Qasem Island, or Qasem Island, I believe it's pronounced, located near the narrowest part of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the United States Central Command, CENTCOM, had announced shortly after midnight, Israel time, that its forces had begun a series of powerful strikes across Iran. And in Iran, explosions were reported during the night in the port city of Sirik, on Qasem Island, in the port city of Bandar Abbas, and on the oil island of Kharg. CENTCOM's statement said that the strikes were intended to exact a heavy price from Iran for the harm to ships crewed by innocent civilians. The United States Central Command had also announced that it had completed the round of strikes in Iran, during which more than 80 targets were attacked using precision munitions. Now, according to the statement, air defense systems, command and control networks, coastal radar sites, capabilities for launching anti-ship missiles, and more than 60 small boats of the Revolutionary Guards in and around the Strait of Hormuz were all attacked. CENTCOM said that American forces are positioned and ready to act against Iran in the event of further violations of the agreement. And in response to the American airstrikes, well, the Iranians began launching missiles towards Kuwait and Bahrain. And afterwards, the Vows news agency reported that Iran launched missiles and drones towards American naval targets. And the Revolutionary Guards claimed that they shot down an American MQ-9 drone in the south of the country. And all of this, absolutely all of this, is happening while in Iran, the funeral of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei continues. The coffin of Iran's Supreme Leader arrived in the Shiite holy city of Najaf in Iraq. The coffin was received at Najaf International Airport by Iraqi Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi and the other senior Iraqi officials. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian also arrived in the city to take part in the ceremonies, and the coffin was carried by the crowd that came to receive it. But a short time after the attacks on the tankers, Iran's president left Iraq and returned to his country following the American strikes. The Al-Khatam al-Nabiyah headquarters, Iran's emergency command, accused the United States, these are their words, of blatant aggression following the strikes, and warned that the Iranian armed forces would respond with a crushing response. It was further stated that Tehran will not allow the United States to interfere in the management of the Strait of Hormuz, and that the only safe route for commercial ships and oil tankers is the one determined by Iran. The Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mahmoud Bagher Ghalibaf, referred in a post he wrote on X to the American strikes, the return of sanctions on oil, and what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz. And he said that the era of bullying and extortion is over. He also said that it leads nowhere. We are not folding. Now look, before the renewal of the strikes in Iran and the announcement about canceling the suspension, the United States warned Iran through the mediators Qatar and Pakistan. And the message was clear. If Iran continues attacking tankers and ships in the Strait of Hormuz, the sanctions will return. That's exactly what happened, by the way. Now, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, he replied that the leaders of the Revolutionary Guards demand that Washington remove its opposition to imposing transit fees throughout the Strait of Hormuz. And Qatar added a warning of its own, after a liquefied natural gas tanker owned by it was attacked, and it still could explode at any moment. And in Doha, they informed Tehran that Qatar would not advance the unfreezing of Iranian funds deposited throughout its banking system. However, it appears that at this stage, the United States will not return to implementing the naval blockade and will make do with enforcing the sanctions as they were before the war started. But this is a cruel game. Iran is left alone with enormous oil surpluses at sea. The global oil market is overloaded right now. Iran has enormous oil reserves in its tankers, but they have nowhere to be sold. 40 million barrels of oil are stuck at sea. As you can see, this is a very tense night in the Middle East. This night is shaping up to be one of the most tense nights in the region in recent times. While global attention is focused on the combined attack led by the United States against military targets in Iran, As a direct response to the attack on the ships in the Strait of Hormuz, Israel's northern front also does not remain quiet. Sources in Lebanon report that Air Force fighter jets struck in the early mornings in the area of the outskirts of Nabatia al-Faqwa and in the village of Mayfudun. This appears to be a determined Israeli action meant to make clear to its enemies that even when the world is looking somewhere else, our security remains at the top of the priority list. So we have a lot ahead of us. Let's dive into the details. I'm Mati Shoshani, and Yair Pinto's not here today, and we are on boots on the ground. We bring you all the truth about what's happening in Israel and about the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. And 1 second before we begin, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Click the subscribe button. And most importantly, don't forget to look for me, Mati Shoshani, and Yair Pinto on social media to get a view through our eyes of what it's like to live in Israel under war. Guys, as missiles once again fall across Israel from Iran, Hezbollah, and other enemies, many people are asking how they can stand with Israel in a meaningful way. And your answer is simple. Help us rebuild. We invite you to take part in something real and of substance, something rooted in the land and in the heart. The Rebuild Israel campaign continues, bringing life back to Israel's north. Along Israel's northern border, an area marked by war, displacement, and loss, we're planting an apple orchard. Not as a symbol for a single moment, but as part of a long-term commitment to restore what was damaged and strengthen Israel's future. And at a time when Israel is under attack continuously, planting trees is a powerful declaration. We are still here. We are rebuilding, we are growing, and we are not leaving. God promised this land to the people of Israel, and together we can help it flourish once more. This orchard is more than agriculture. It creates jobs for local families. It helps communities return and rebuild. It sends a clear message to the people of Israel. You're not alone. When you donate, you are not just giving, you are rebuilding. Your support puts trees in the ground, restores livelihoods, and transforms land scarred by war into land that grows once more. This is how renewal takes root. This is how Israel rebuilds after war. We call you to stand with Israel today, to plant hope, to restore the North, to strengthen Israel's future. Go to tbn.org/rebuildisrael or call 800-804-7895. Rebuild the land, restore hope, and bless the future. Let's get back to the news. Tonight, the war returned through the sea. The United States launched a powerful wave of strikes in southern Iran after at least 3 commercial ships and tankers were hit in the area of the Strait of Hormuz. Explosions were reported in Sirik, in Bandar Abbas, in Keshem Island, and Khalg Island, and the American message was very clear. An attack on freedom of navigation will not pass without a price. And the question now is whether this is a limited response or the beginning of a new round between the United States, Israel, Iran, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran. According to statements from U.S. Central Command, that's CENTCOM, the strikes began shortly after midnight Israel time and continued for several hours. More than 80 targets were struck with precision munitions. Among the targets were air defense systems, command and control networks, coastal radar sites, anti-ship missile launch capabilities, drone launch sites, port facilities, and more than 60 small IRGC boats, mosquito boats, operating in and around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this was not a symbolic strike. This was an operation designed to dismantle an entire operational layer around the Strait of Hormuz. The ability to detect ships, to track them, to threaten them, and strike them from Iran's coastal space. At the same time, at least 14 American military aircraft were reported operating over the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, including around 12 refueling aircraft, a P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, and a refueling aircraft from the United States or the United Arab Emirates. That is an important detail, because aerial refueling is what allows strike aircraft to stay in the air for long hours, to apply continuous force, and conduct a broad operation without relying on a nearby landing site. And in Iran, reports described hits at a commercial pier in the city of Sirik, fires on several boats in Bandar Abbas, and explosions on Qeshm Island. Explosions were also heard on Kharg Island, Iran's most important oil export hub. Kharg is not just another point on the map. It is the island through which a huge share of Iranian oil exports usually pass. And that is why every sound there is heard not only in Tehran, but also in global markets. This American strike came after a series of incidents in the Strait of Hormuz. A liquefied natural gas tanker linked to Qatar was hit near the coast of Oman. As it was leaving the strait, it was struck on its left side near the engine room, sent distress signals, and requested assistance. At the same time, there were reports of damage to a Saudi tanker and another tanker hit by a drone. Among the vessels mentioned were the El Kayat, the Wedian, and the Cyprus Prosperity. Now, Qatar responded decisively. It summoned an Iranian representative and placed full responsibility on Tehran for the attack. Doha has also made clear that it would not advance the release of Iranian funds held in Qatari banks as long as Iran continues to endanger maritime security. This is no longer only a military crisis. It's a direct hit to Iran's pockets through one of the countries Tehran tried to keep close. And Iran, for its part, claimed that it is carefully honoring its commitments under the Memorandum of Understanding, but in the same breath hinted the vessels do not coordinate their route with Iran or taking a risk. That is the heart of this story. Tehran is trying to turn the Strait of Hormuz from an international shipping lane into a space where it decides who passes, through which route, and at what price. I call that unacceptable. Even before the strikes, Washington warned Tehran through the mediators, Qatar and Pakistan, that if the attacks on tankers and ships in the strait continue, the sanctions will return. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi responded that the heads of the Revolutionary Guards are demanding that the United States remove its opposition to transit fees in Hormuz. Now, in other words, Iran does not only want safe passage, it wants recognition of its right to charge a price for that passage. Now, Washington didn't accept that. The U.S. Treasury Department canceled the authorization granted on June the 21st for the sale, for the production and transport of Iranian origin crude oil, fuel products, and petrochemical byproducts. Until July the 17th, only essential actions will be allowed to close deals that had already begun. This is not an extension of the license. This is an orderly closing of the entire door. Oil prices reacted immediately in global markets. Brent crude rose above $74 a barrel, its highest level since late June, and at certain stages it climbed several percentage points within hours. That's exactly what makes Hormuz such a sensitive point. Every missile that hits a tanker near Oman is later felt at gas stations, in insurance contracts, in governments, and in trading rooms on the other side of the world. Guys, what you see on YouTube is only part of the story. Get closer first-hand reports, behind-the-scenes moments, and stories of faith, resilience, and hope from Israel at tbn.org/journeys/boots, or text BOOTS to 316-316 for direct updates from us, me, Mati, and Yael, who report directly from Israel. You're not just watching the news, you're witnessing what's happening on the ground, because we bring you honest first-hand coverage from the ground in Israel to viewers around the world. And that's why TBN Israel shares what's really happening through a Judeo-Christian perspective, rooted in truth, in faith, and the people living it every day. Your support helps deliver on-the-ground reporting, real stories of resilience and hope, and trusted coverage that connects Christians and Jews to what's happening in Israel. Let's get back to the news. In Iran, the response was furious. Khatam el-Nabiyah, the emergency command of the armed forces, accused the United States of blatant aggression and warned of a crushing response. The Iranian statement said that Tehran will not allow American interference in the management of the Strait of Hormuz, and that the only safe route for commercial ships and tankers will continue to be the one determined by Iran. The Speaker of Iranian's parliament, Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf, wrote that the era of bullying and extortion is over, and added, "We will not fold." He also linked the crisis in Hormuz to what he called Israel's ongoing aggression in Lebanon. That's not accidental. Iran is trying to expand the crisis from the sea to every arena where it has leverage, to Lebanon, the Gulf, oil, and the nuclear negotiations. The Revolutionary Guards claimed in response that they had struck dozens of American targets in Bahrain and Kuwait, and even claimed they had downed an American MQ-9 Reaper drone. At the same time, sirens were heard in Bahrain and Kuwait. Bahrain is especially sensitive because it hosts the headquarters of U.S. Fifth Fleet, which is responsible for American naval presence throughout the region. So every siren there is not just a local event. It touches the nervous system of American power in the Gulf. Now, all of this is happening while the funeral procession of the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is still underway. His coffin was flown to Najaf in Iraq, the holy Shiite city, where it was received by Iraqi officials and religious figures. From there, the procession is expected to continue to Karbala and then back to Iran for burial in the city of Mashhad. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian came to Iraq to take part in the ceremonies, but after the American strikes, he left immediately and returned to his country. Now, this funeral is not only a religious ceremony. The Iranian regime is shaping it as a display of regime continuity. After the elimination of a leader who ruled for almost 4 decades, Tehran wants to show that the system has not collapsed, that the street is still mobilized, and that the threat of revenge remains alive. That is why the chants against the United States and Israel, the signs, the flags, and the atmosphere in the streets are all part of the effort to rebuild deterrence that was so severely damaged. While Tehran is trying to project strength, it's also facing a severe economic problem. The global oil market is no longer waiting for Iranian oil as it once did. China, which was a major customer, has significantly reduced the pace of its oil purchases from Iran. And according to the figures that are presented, in June, the volume of Iranian oil supplied to China fell to only 654,000 barrels per day. At the same time, the market is talking about tens of millions of barrels of Iranian oil sitting on tankers without stable and clear buyers. Now, this is a very dangerous situation for Tehran. On the one hand, it is using Hormuz to pressure the world. But on the other hand, every disruption to shipping pushes customers even farther away from Iran, raises insurance premiums, complicates payments, and pulls Iran deeper into dependence on middlemen. That's what a pressure lever looks like when it gradually becomes a burden as well. And this is where the Israeli arena also enters the picture. While the United States is striking Iran, the IDF struck targets in southern Lebanon. In Lebanon, these strikes were reported in the area of Nabatia el-Fawqa and the village of Mafdoun. At the same time, IDF forces operating in the security zone in southern Lebanon located weapons depots in the village of Talush, including explosive charges, anti-tank launchers, and missiles. Of course, RPG rockets, vests, helmets, all the weaponry that Hezbollah terrorists use, some of them inside a bedroom in a civilian home. This is exactly the way Hezbollah tries to preserve its capabilities under civilian guise and cover. A house becomes a weapons depot, a bedroom becomes an equipment point, and a village looking innocent becomes part of a combat network. I've seen this with my own eyes. The IDF is operating there not only to create a headline, but to remove the threats before they become fire on the communities of northern Israel as they were in the past. In Bin Jbal, there was also another encounter inside a building when a Hezbollah terrorist opened fire at a force from the Iftah Reserve Brigade. A female soldier from the Oketz unit returned fire and eliminated them. An Oketz dog was killed, and there were no casualties among the troops. These are the small details that tell the reality in northern Israel. Not only airstrikes, but searches from building to building, room to room, in an area where Hezbollah is trying to breathe once more. And while the fire is expanding from the east and the north, another arena is unfolding in Ankara. U.S. President Donald Trump arrived at the NATO summit in Turkey, where he met Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Trump said he would reconsider the sale of F-35 fighter jets to Turkey. He also spoke about removing sanctions imposed on Ankara after its purchase of the S-400 system, which is an air defense system from Russia. And in Israel, that sets off a very loud warning light. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that Turkey is not a friendly country to the United States in the way some are trying to present it, and argued that this is a regime connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, one that supports and funds Hamas, threatens Greece, holds parts of Cyprus hostage, and also threatens Israel. From a Jerusalem perspective, giving F-35s to Turkey could change the aerial balance of power in this entire region. And the problem is not just one aircraft. The problem is the trend. Turkish naval vessels have already disrupted an Israeli naval exercise. Turkey is trying to establish a foothold in Syria, including attempts to deploy systems in Damascus or near the border. Turkey's weapons industry is growing rapidly, and the Turkish military is holding exercises with Egypt at sea and in the air. To top all of this, the NATO summit in Ankara gives Erdogan international legitimacy, just as he is trying to return to a position of regional power. Israel understands that the campaign is not only against Iran, it is also against shipping lanes, alliances, military technology, and the question of who will set the agenda in the Eastern Mediterranean. That's why Netanyahu came to the naval base in Haifa and defined a clear goal: to secure Israel's shipping routes and freedom of maritime trade. That is a message to Iran, but also to Turkey. Anyone looking at Haifa understands that Israel does not intend to remain a bystander while the region is being divided once more. Now, in the broader background of the story, there is a race over new energy routes. Turkey is trying to build a broad Sunni axis with Qatar, Egypt, Syria, parts of Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and other countries. In Syria, there's already talk of possible gas and oil infrastructure from the Gulf to the Mediterranean, a route that would bypass the Iranian choke point in Hormuz. For Israel, this is both danger and an opportunity. If those routes pass through Syria and Turkey, Ankara will grow stronger. If Israel succeeds in building its own alliance with the Gulf states, Greece, Cyprus, Romania, and others, it can become part of the regional solution and not only a country reacting to threats. Now, Europe also understands that the world is changing. Ahead of the NATO summit, European countries, quite a few of them actually, are showing an increase in defense spending. And 5 members of the alliance are expected to reach the new target of 3.5% of GDP for defense already this coming year. That's Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Poland, and Greece are leading that trend. This shows that the crisis in the Middle East is not disconnected from the global picture. Iran, Russia, Turkey, China, NATO, and the sea, they're all part of the same pressure cooker that we're witnessing. This night showed that a ceasefire without clear deterrence can turn within hours into a maritime, aerial, and diplomatic war. And if Hormuz, Lebanon, and Turkey enter the same equation together, are we seeing one American response, or the opening of a far greater, dangerous regional chapter? Guys, keep spreading the truth. Follow us, and most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you stay tuned into the truth in real time and never miss an episode of Boots on the Ground. Keep looking for me, Mati Shoshani, and Yael Pinto on social media to see life in Israel through our eyes. And as always, I want to end with a prayer for the people of Israel. I want to encourage you at home. This isn't a passive experience. I want to encourage you to pray for people's peace, for the people of Israel, for the government of Israel, but pray also for the people of the Middle East. They're not alone in this. They too are loved by God. They too have a plan and a destiny for their life. Pray for the people of Iran. Pray for the people of Syria. Pray for the people of Lebanon. Pray for the people of Gaza to all have a virtuous and good leadership. And even though Israel isn't perfect, and we never claim to be perfect, we are thankful for God's protection and provision. And I ask that you continue praying along those lines. And if you don't know how to pray, you just say the Lord's Prayer, that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Be blessed, guys, and we'll see you all next time.